Welcome, welcome, business owning moms, to my coveted maternity leave planning roadmap. Today, we're talking about, I guess, another slightly unsexy topic as part of our roadmap series, and that is insurance. I think a lot of business owners and just a lot of people in general sleep on insurance because they feel like maybe they're paying into something that they may never use. Or maybe they're thinking about, insurance as this big scary thing that's really expensive and inaccessible, and it doesn't really help anyway. I remember thinking that when I first started my business. I was working on my own. I was an LLC. And I remember sitting down with one of my financial advisors, and he was asking me all these questions about the business and the finances. And we were really looking at my P&L. And he was like, "Do you have insurance?" And I was like, "No." And he said to me, he was like, "You need to get insurance like immediately. Other than what was required, workers' compensation, those types of things for my employees. I had no like outside insurance." And to be totally truthful, I'm so grateful that we had that conversation because now my insurance picture looks so much different than it did then. And I am so much more calm and confident with the like worst case scenario stuff inside of the business. And a lot of folks, I think, hesitate to think in worst case scenario. And honestly, it does stress me out sometimes thinking about, if we end up in some sort of situation where I can't work in the business, aside from maternity leave, or somebody decides that they're unhappy with how I do things and they want to, file a lawsuit or something like that. My business insurance actually protects against all of those things and actually helps me with the financial requirements of being able to actually calmly approach some of these more challenging situations inside of our business. And I think as it grows and as our family grows, the stakes just get higher and higher. And insurance is such a such a really, really helpful tool to be able to stack on top of all the other things that you're doing inside of the business to just give you that extra peace of mind. So I'm going to kind of share my whole insurance picture with you guys and then talk about specifically what we can use for maternity leave because I think it's really helpful to think through all of it because you can kind of stack it against each other. And I will tell you this. I am not an insurance expert. I am not anybody who's quoting you on a policy. This is not a quote for a policy. This is not a recommendation firmly on your situation. I'm sharing what I do and what you might consider and talk to an insurance professional about. So I just wanted to go ahead and make that very obligatory caveat. So, great idea to get business insurance. We have a general business owner's policy. So, my business owner's policy protects me against so many different types of things inside of the business, data leaks, which we take a really great care of our data because at operations agency, we were hosting a lot of standard operating procedures and company knowledge bases and all those types of things. And so we have a process. And if you can kind of show your insurance company or let them know what your process is, you can get some discounts on the insurance. So talk to your provider, tell them about the nature of your business. They will likely recommend some kind of insurance policy for a general business owner's insurance. We also have a blanket liability insurance that protects us against anything that supports in, like litigation, any of those things. That helps you sleep at night. Thankfully, we've never been in that situation, but it's nice to know that we have it. So, and then the third is we obviously have another short-term and long-term disability policies. And so short and long-term disability are stacked on top of, I'm in the state of Colorado. So Colorado has a really great, short-term and long-term disability program for, folks who have businesses who can't work and all those things. And they actually have a really solid income replacement. However, they only cover a small amount of the income that I bring into the home. And so I stack my private insurance on top of that to make sure that they can cover the rest. And so it's really helpful because if I'm unable to work for a short time, the government picks up the bill basically. But then if I want to go any longer, then usually what will happen is my private insurance will kick up and take over the bill. And that's really helpful because I remember in the beginning of my maternity leave with Jack, I was excited to work a little bit, but I didn't really want to feel like I had a full time job inside of the business yet. And what ended up happening was I actually didn't have the extra insurance. So for long term, I only had the short term disability, and that was helpful to a point. However, I felt like I had to go back a little bit earlier, or I was in a position where I needed to kind of just make up that extra revenue because of the fact that short term disability wasn't covering all of the time that I wanted to take off. So I specifically mentioned this for my moms who want to take off 6 months, a year, doing some of those longer stints of time away from the business. Playing the state program, the short term disability and the long term disability with each other you can kind of think of them like Legos, like they're customizable based on what your specific situation is, what your family situation is. I remember because my husband wasn't working at the time, we claimed him as a dependent on the tax return. And ultimately, it ended up saving us a ton in taxes that year, which my family got back. And that was also a really helpful support, for us as a family. So, all of these things to say, you can use the state programs, the short term disability, the long term disability to make sure that you can customize a plan for yourself. And you can also explore with your tax accountant the benefit of different types of business structures. So, we were an S corp when we did this, and my S corp holds insurance for myself and my other employees and I'm an employee of the business. So instead of filing for like the self-employed benefits, or instead of, just being, a 1099 contractor, I have a business that employs me as a human. And I, as a human, Alyson Caffrey, filed as, an individual for some of this stuff. And so it all was able to be kind of on my tax return and on our financial picture because I was filing as an individual and not technically as a business owner. So a bunch of different like little nuances. Now, the other caveat I will say, I know this podcast lives in a kind of eternal state because it's recorded and it's going to go up on the show. These change all the time. Like all the time. The policies change all the time. I'm constantly monitoring them. My team is constantly monitoring them. The benefits change, the percentage of income changes, the contribution that you need to make changes, the timeline or the window of time before you get coverage changes. So the best place to go and look is on your state website. We have all of that stuff together at Master Maternity Leave. So when you join one of our programs and join our community, we've got a very, very, living, breathing list of all the benefits, where to go, how to qualify, all that stuff. But just know that if you're listening to this, 6 months later, it could be different than if you're in a position where you're paying into this now. Usually you can also ask your state representative or somebody who's supportive over the state programs. And you can absolutely ask your insurance provider. If you do have insurance, just give them a call or run, a scenario by them. They should be able to advise you in the direction of, what you can take, how long you can take, and all those types of things. Get insurance. Honestly, it's good for the nervous system. That's my total opinion. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I think a lot of folks are scared about like state programs, insurance, and how to kind of stack it all together. It can work for you. It's designed to work for you. And so you just need to really think about, what exactly you want and be able to tap somebody on the shoulder for some support on how to get there and what might work best for you. So anyway, next episode, I will see you guys for Roadmap Takeover number 18.